Well, ironically, they're two teams kind of in the same spot as a franchise right now. The Predators and Blues play tonight in St. Louis. We've got your game preview, and one thing the Preds need to do to pull out a win. Plus, what do you think is the worst contract that David Poile has ever signed as GM of the Nashville Predators? There's a new blog article that came out that has us asking that question, and I personally disagree with what a lot of people think is the consensus number one. Let's talk about that today on the Locked On Preds podcast.
Your Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day every single day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast that's available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Also want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right. Well, this, for many reasons, is a game I think Preds fans have had circled on the calendar. One, it's against a hated rival, the St. Louis Blues. Two, very important for playoff implications down the road because both teams are kind of in the same spot right now. The Preds are 1 point ahead of St. Louis in the standings. They have 48 points. The Blues have 47. The Preds could theoretically leapfrog the Colorado Avalanche after this game. That's a whole different conversation.
That's a podcast.
And yeah, these and hey, it's the St. Louis Blues. We love to beat the St. Louis Blues, don't we? There's a lot of bragging rights there. So, Ann, it's funny if you look across the scope of the NHL right now and you see two current non-playoff teams fighting for, spots, of all of those types of games, this is the one I think is probably going to be most intriguing across the entire NHL this year, or tonight, I should say.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. And what is so interesting to me is that these two teams are where they are tonight, because I don't know that we really had a good gauge of where Nashville was going to be, but St. Louis was, for me, a sleeper. I really felt like St. Louis was going to come out, and not a lot of people were talking about them, but I thought St. Louis is going to come out and shock the socks off of the Central Division. And I'm not saying that the Central Division hasn't been shocked by St. Louis. I think it's just been in very different ways than what I had anticipated. But I agree with you. This is going to be a very interesting game across the NHL tonight for people to be watching these two teams, because what happens tonight, it's still early. I get it. We're before the All-Star break. But where Nashville and where St. Louis have found themselves, there's playoff implications in January, potentially, based on what happens tonight. And it could affect some other teams down the road too. So this one has me a little nervous, but also I have one specific high hope for this game tonight. So you know what? Let's go. Bring it on, St. Louis. Bring it on. As the cheerleaders say.
What's your one specific high hope?
Well, the last time these two teams played was in December. It was a 1-0 overtime game. So in my mind, we can just gloss over that. St. Louis won that in overtime. It was not an offensive battle by any stretch of the imagination. But the time before that they played was October 27th. What happened for the last time on October 22nd? What happened for the last time on October 22nd? Do you know?
Well, for the last time?
For the last time. Since October 27th, this has not happened.
Tanner Jeannot, his last goal. The last time Tanner Jeannot scored a goal this season.
Baby, I'm on Jeannot Hattie watch. It's coming.
That would be extremely on-brand if Tanner Jeannot goes like 3 months without scoring a goal and then just third, then just like scores three.
Yeah. Can you believe, I mean, so crazy. I went back and looked at that October 27th game and I was like, how is it possible that that is correct? And friends, that is correct information. Tanner Jeannot has not scored a goal since October 22nd. He's had some assists, but he has not scored a goal. Tonight, my friends, my hopes are high. My hat is on. Hopefully by the end of the night, it won't be, because I'm not just saying Tanner Jeannot's going to score a goal. I am praying to the hockey gods that he breaks this horrible snake bit streak with a Hattie. Or just one. Or just one, friends.
Why don't we start with one?
Just one.
Let's start with one and see how it is. What do you think happens first, Ann? Do you think Tanner Jeannot score or breaks his 3-month goal drought, or do you think Cole Smith scores his first goal?
You know, would it not absolutely rock the Predators fan base to its core if both happened?
That would be, if that happens, tonight is going to be one of the best nights on Twitter.
It would be cataclysmic, people.
Very long time.
I would love to see both of those things happen, like in a 40-second span. Like, you know, the Predators got those 2 goals against Buffalo in like 44 seconds. Let's do a Tanner Jeannot and a Cole Smith back-to-back goals in under a minute. And just watch the world around us implode.
You have me sold. You have convinced me to watch the Twitter world burn down.
Come on. And it's been a hard world these last 24 hours.
It's been interesting because this isn't the typical St. Louis Blues team we're used to seeing, so to speak. You know, the St. Louis Blues, you think of them and you think of those old games with the Preds, and it's like all these 2-1 or 3-2 battles, and everybody's throwing their body around and everybody's checking, and there's, you know, the other team is packed with players that fan base loves to hate. And it just hasn't been that way for the St. Louis Blues this year. You know, the defense especially has not been there. The goaltending has not been there. Jordan Binnington not looking anywhere close to where he's been the past few years. And that's a big issue. And then the other thing for the Blues is just the fact that they're hurt. I mean, their IR list is a potential all-star team. You know, Vladimir Tarasenko out tonight, Ryan O'Reilly out tonight, Torrey Krug, Marco Scandella, everybody's favorite villain, Robert Bortuzzo. He's out too.
So sad. That must be awful.
Yeah, somewhere Victor Arvidsson is laughing next to a fireplace while stroking a cat. You know, it's just it's a very different St. Louis Blues team, and maybe that's part of why the Blues are at where they're at this season. But also, you know, you look at Ryan O'Reilly and his game, even before the injury, hasn't quite been there. Vladimir Tarasenko certainly hasn't been the Vladimir Tarasenko of years past. And it's funny because, and that's why I said this, and we can talk a little bit more in depth about this after the break, but it really feels like Nashville and St. Louis kind of in the same spot as a franchise right now, where it's, you know, you have this, you know, kind of trademark core, this core of players that took you to a lot of success. And it just kind of feels like maybe their time is running out. You know, you look at St. Louis and they have guys like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Obviously, those two guys are who you need to kind of transition the core to. So that means you look at where the Blues are and it's like, does that mean, you know, Ryan O'Reilly might be on the trade block come the deadline? Could Vladimir Tarasenko, he's been in trade rumors for a couple of years now. Is this the year he finally gets moved? So it's very interesting to see, you know, the conversation around the Blues centered around that. Some of these old, you know, this long time people who are so critical to the Blues' success, maybe playing in their last few months in a Blues uniform.
Yeah, it is. And to be where they're at as a team as well. Still kind of trying to figure out where are we going to land? Are we going to land in the postseason? Are we not? Because again, I really felt like St. Louis was going to be one of those quiet killers in the Central Division. And I don't know. Tonight is going to be a great hockey game. Tonight is going to be a good game for both of these teams to figure out a little bit more. Could we just maybe get a little peek at who this Nashville Predators team really is tonight? I don't know, but I'm here for a Tanner Jeannot Hattie, friend.
Yeah, I feel like we've been saying that for quite some time now.
Every episode.
So we're going to talk about one thing the Preds need to do tonight to absolutely win this hockey game. Plus, interesting article that came out via the Hockey Economist about the Predators' worst contracts in franchise history. There's the number one on the list is probably the one you're thinking of. I disagree. And I'm going to explain why here coming up in a second. But first, want to mention today's show is brought to you by Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting, info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. Pretty much any sport you can name, they've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like the one you're listening to right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the action happening tonight. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Ann, what to you is one thing the Predators absolutely need to do tonight to beat the St. Louis Blues?
I know this is going to sound just outrageously obvious, but the Nashville Predators have got to generate offense and finish their chances, especially against the Blues. The Blues have had some low-scoring games, but they have also, in the beginning of this month, put up some pretty decent numbers in some games as far as goals. This is a team where Nashville needs to get their offense going again. I mean, I'm looking at like 4 goals minimum. This is what I think Nashville needs to do. And I think it's possible if they can get some things going. They need to, obviously, they've got to figure out what is happening on the power play. We talked about it last night. The power play was a hot, steaming mess in the last game, and definitely, from the sounds of it, something that John Hines was going to be spending some time working on. So we need to see the Predators, when you have an opportunity, whether it's with a quality chance or whether it's a net front goal or whether it is on the power play, you have to make that convert into offense. You've got to score some goals. And you talked about Jordan Binnington, and this is somebody who's kind of, it's so odd because he'll have like a shutout. He'll have a really good game. And then it's just, he's a little bit not... he is not consistent necessarily like we have in Juuse Saros. So I think there's an opportunity there. You talked about there are some injuries. You've talked about, the defense maybe is not holding up as well as you're used to with St. Louis. This is an opportunity for Nashville to get back to the kind of play that results in goals. And I'm not talking about passing it around the perimeter, because when you look back at that October 27th game that the Predators won 6-2, those goals came in front of the net. They were juicy rebounds. It was Ryan Johansson following the play and smacking a rebound back in there. It was those kind of greasy goals, that net front presence, that, stop going for style points. Although Philip Forsberg in that Michigan try in the last game, maybe just go ahead. I'm just saying. He said afterward, he was like, that would have been really sweet. And I'm like, it really actually was beautiful. But Nashville, put goals on the board, put goals behind the net. You are generating some good chances in these games. These games you're winning 2-1. You are generating far better high danger chances than your opponents. You've got to finish them. So for me, I know it sounds basic in the world of hockey and sports in general, but you have got to score more goals than your opponent.
Yeah. And you mentioned the power play, like the
Oh,
Preds power play. They're going to get their chance tonight because the St. Louis Blues, not a good penalty kill, 28th in the NHL in penalty kill. Of
mhm.
course, the Predators have a 29th best power play. So maybe that offsets each other. But the
Yeah.
chances are the Predators are going to get a chance against a not very good penalty kill.
Mhm.
And can they generate chances there? And you talked about it a little bit. It just seems like the last little bit, they've kind of gone back to the late Peter Laviolette days where it's
Yes.
just, they're trying too hard to set up one specific play. And it's not necessarily just, take 50 shots from the perimeter and hope the best happens. But,
Mhm.
they're always trying to make that perfect pass or,
Yes.
set up kind of in the middle of the circle and pass it cross ice, try to get that one timer. And teams are reading it. Or, the pass is a little bit, off the mark. They're trying too hard to set up, one or two particular plays. And I agree with you. When we saw the Predators late in December kind of start to turn things around, they were keeping things simple. It
Yes.
wasn't like a dump in or trying to set up like a cycle or a specific play. We saw like plays where Matt Duchene would get the puck instead of, diving, he would just take it 1-on-2, drive to the net, force whatever goalie was there to try to make the save. If not, rebound opportunity, you have a chance to reset, or the goalie, has to make a save and cover the puck, and boom, all of a sudden you have an offensive zone faceoff. There's simple things like that.
Mhm.
You mentioned like some of the gritty goals, those, sometimes it's not a bad play to just, if you have a shooting lane, to shoot it and then just have, three guys rush towards the crease and try to, smack home rebounds, get a tip, something like that. The Predators, the way they're at right now, they don't need to be too fancy. Keep it
Yes.
simple, and I think they're going to have a really good chance of maybe turning some of their offensive woes around tonight. But they have to go back to keeping things simple.
Yeah. I agree, and I think especially on the power play, in the last game, they couldn't even get it in the zone. And again, it goes back to just keep it simple. You don't have to force anything. Y- Just be patient with the play and then put the pucks on net. Just put pucks on net. Like Matthias Ekholm said one time, I don't think anything bad usually happens if you put pucks on net. And sometimes something really good happens, and let's hear it for some good Swedish wisdom. Put the puck on the net. And let's be very happy when Tanner Jeannot finishes those shots with a rebound or punches it past Binnington. Let's not need style goals. Let's just keep it simple. And I think that's when you see the Predators most successful, when they just keep it simple. And I think there's a couple players who are maybe overthinking the game right now.
Yeah.
And and I understand when maybe you feel like you're not where you want to be. That's kind of the headspace that you go to. You tend to overthink. You tend to look for, oh no, this is the best play.
Mhm.
Go for the really good play. You don't have to spend that much time trying to generate the best play. Go for the really good play. And I would love to see a game that had a score of 6-2 for the Predators, or like I said, 4-2. I know traditionally St. Louis and Nashville have been, that 2-1, 1-0 kind of, matchup. But tonight, for the Predators' confidence sake, let's get some goals. Let's get some Cody Glass goals. Let's get, like I said, couple Tanner Jeannot. Tonight could be Cole Smith's night, my friends.
It's going to happen at some
It's
point.
going to happen. And you know what? When it happens, hockey Twitter, I want to see you post congratulations, and you just save your snark for tomorrow, because we know you're going to bring it back about Cole Smith
Yeah.
tomorrow. Give the man a day
I hope it's
to
like, when like
celebrate.
Alex Ovechkin broke Gordie Howe's mark and like all the teammates came skating off the bench. I hope
Yes.
that happens for Cole Smith. Just they
Yes.
stop the game. Everybody like
Yes.
goes to the corner and like hugs him. The other team is standing, at their bench giving the stick taps.
Yes.
I envision that happening for Cole Smith. I also envision game 82. He's got 0 goals, and then he's got a breakaway and an empty net. He's skating towards the empty net and then just like slips and falls. and he slides into the net, and then just the puck, you just see a vision of the puck just slide right, like by it.
Outside.
Yeah, and then there's just like dead silence except for the sound of John Hines laughing in the background.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's the other world I envision. Pick which one you think is more realistic.
I'm going with Cole Smith scores a goal tonight, and so does Tanner Jeannot. I'm putting it out there. Let's put it out there and see what the cat licks up, friends. Let's just see what happens tonight.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Speaking of players and not scoring and anything like that, the Hockey Economist recently put out an article about the Preds' 15 worst contracts of the David Poile era. I disagree with a couple of entries on the list, and there's one in particular that's really grinding Anne's gears, and
huge.
I'm sure she is going to talk about it. So let's get into that here in just a second.
We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But first, we want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Built Bar. If you have listened to this podcast, you know that Nick and I are huge fans of Built Bar. So we're here to tell you that if you were
yesterday.
Did you?
I did.
What flavor did you order?
I got the peanut butter chocolate granola, and I got a puff mixed box.
Nice. High recommendations from both of us for the granola and the puffs. Just totally off script. Huge fans of those. But if you are looking for something to help you make a little bit healthier choices this new year, Nick and I hard recommend Built Bars. They are good for you, but they also taste great. There are so many things out there that are supposedly good for you that you just cannot choke down. That is not at all what Built Bars are. Healthy is tasty with Built Bars. Part of that reason is that they are covered in 100% real chocolate. So you're going to be thinking you're getting a great treat. They come in great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I love the cherry barcia. And I don't know how Built Bar does it, but they do it and we give them credit for it. They make this delicious treat with great macros, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein in these Built Bars. And now you don't have to wait around for a box. You can, of course, do what Nick did and go to built.com and order your favorite flavor. But you can now also go to Walmart, wander down through the pharmacy area and pick yourself up a 4-count box of Built Bars. Or if bigger is better in your life, go to Sam's Club. You can get an 18-count box at Sam's Club. And a little side note, if you have college students in your life, they love Built Bars because they grab them before their early classes and sleep in a little bit longer, skip breakfast. So check out Walmart, check out Sam's Club, and remember you can always go to built.com/NHL Network to order your favorite flavor, and you can get 20% off your order. That's built.com/NHL Network for 20% off at built.com.
All right, Ann. So over the weekend, you and I saw an article that kind of piqued our interest. So the Hockey Economist, who is a blogger a lot of people follow, put out his list of the 15 worst Nashville Predators contracts. It's based on a book he put out called The Guide to Salary Mismanagement. And it takes a lot of things. It's just like, the long-term value of the deal versus, how well the player did, the salary implications, blah, 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 blah. So here's basically the top 5. Number 1, Kyle Turris, which I think a lot of people would say maybe number 1. Number 2, Ryan Johansson, his current deal. 3, Victor Stahlberg. 4, Matt Duchene. And 5, Paul Gostad. And there's some other ones on the list. I'm giving one in particular I think Hannah's going to get to here in a second.
Are you talking about number 12? Because I have a problem with number 12.
Yeah, just go ahead and say number 12.
Number 12 is Pekka Rinne's final deal. What in the ever-loving flagnog are you putting that on there for? But go ahead. Yeah, it's outrageous. It's just outrageous to me. Outrageous.
Yeah. I mean...
outrageous, Nicholas.
Yeah, this was like the deal he signed when was this? It was like after his Vezina year. It was just like the 2 more deals
The
to keep
2
through
years,
2020 and 2021, which is, like, look, he was there to train. I mean, I think David Poile even said it at the time. It was there to kind of transition to Juuse Saros.
Yes.
Like, I don't see anything wrong with that contract. So
Pecorine is worth $5 million if he doesn't even change out of his suit and sits in the locker room for the game. That's all I have to say about that. Number 12 is outrageous. But go ahead. Let's go back and talk about some of these other ones.
Yeah, strong disagree with Pecorine being on there.
Strong.
For me, number 1, I know everybody's going to go with Kyle Turris. I know that everybody is, still talking about the buyout, the big disappointment. And yeah, I get it. Like, I really do get it. That's a bad contract. There's one that I would put higher than that, Anne.
Really? See, now I will say this about the Kyle Turris one. I get in retrospect, and this is what frustrated me. Nick and I conversed about this last night. This is what frustrates me about this. Hindsight makes everyone look like a genius. I think the Kyle Turris signing at the time was a very smart move.
Well, that's why I said wait for context here, because number 1 on my list, I would put Victor Stalberg number 1, because look, like you said, I think you need to add some context into this. Kyle Turris was at the time considered a pretty good 2 third-line center, like number 2, number 3, like a middle 6, which is what the Predators desperately needed. And he had some success the year before in Ottawa, both, during the regular season and during the playoffs.
Right.
Like, got Ottawa very close to basically 1 goal away from facing the Nashville Predators in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm sure the NHL would have loved that.
They would have loved that finals.
For that TV ratings there. So, you know what? There was at least some evidence that it's like, okay, you know what? Kyle Turris, sure. He took a stab at it. Here's the thing with Victor Stalberg. There was no baseline for him being good at all. The deal with Victor Stalberg is in 2012, he scored 22 goals as the 3rd member of the Blackhawks line with Taves and Kane. The next year, he was taking off that line and just a depth guy, and he scored 9 goals. And that was the year the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. And if you're thinking, oh, okay, maybe he just cashed in on like a good playoff performance or something. No, he didn't score a goal in the entire Stanley Cup playoffs that year. He had 3 points and had 10 minutes average of ice time. And so what happens the next year? David Poile signs him to a 4-year, $12 million deal. You're giving a 4th liner $3 million a year for 4 years.
Yeah.
Tell me how that makes sense. I would actually put Paul Gaustad's contract a little bit higher up there for context too, because he was, knew what he was. You already gave up a 1st-round pick at the trade deadline to get Paul Gaustad. You saw basically what he's doing. He's just a very good penalty killer, very good faceoff specialist. And then you lock him in for 4 more years at $3.3 million. You're giving all these depth guys who don't have a history of game-changing play, except maybe a very niche role in the penalty kill. You're giving them long-term deals for $3 million. That's why I think those 2 are worse contracts in context than Kyle Turris or Ryan Johansson. Yeah, look, Kyle Turris did not work out. I mean, in retrospect, a very bad contract. But I'm with you, Ann. I think hindsight on this one is 2020. I at the time, you make that Kyle Turris trade.
Yeah.
And you sign him to that contract.
Yes.
That's what 100%. You do at the time. Obviously, he didn't work out, and it worked out bad. The Victor Stalberg and Paul Gaustad situations, and there's some other entries in the list like Eric Nystrom, Matt Hendricks.
Right.
that are kind of fall in the same category of this. Those other contracts are like, they seemed bad at the time. Like they seem like, this doesn't seem like it's a good idea. And then they wound up being very bad, like proven to be bad in time.
Right.
That's why I think those were worse deals than Kyle
Yes.
Turris.
Yes. It's the information you have going in, because let's just face it, there's a little bit of crystal ball voodoo when you are signing these contracts. And I know, fans think being the GM is really not that difficult. This is a good contract. This is a bad contract. But I agree with you. Context is everything. When you look at Kyle Turris, and I know that the Predators are still paying him. And look, here's what's real. Julie Turris and her podcast with Ida was worth every penny for Kyle Turris. Just the off ice podcast that they did, worth every penny of that contract. Thank you. But the information you had going in made this a good deal. Was he perhaps overpaying? Of course, but this is all based on market value. This is all based on one moment in time. How many centers with that particular skill set were available and how many teams were looking for them? There's so many factors that go into making these contracts at the time. And I think the information that you had and the market that was there when Kyle Turris was signed does not make this ridiculous. And look, I love Kyle Turris. Quite frankly, I have no problem still paying Kyle Turris because I love him that much.
Yeah, I mean,
here's my contract question. Here is my contract question for you, Nick. Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene. Which is the worst contract?
I mean, here's the thing. I think based on the role they're playing, it's kind of easy to compare because they have identical contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the role they're playing right now, obviously Ryan Johansson is the one that's probably the most overpaid.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you bring in Matt Duchene to kind of be your prize free agent and you give him, all these clauses and stuff like that, has he produced like a number one center? I mean, neither of them have.
Right.
But I would say at least Matt Duchene is in, and I go back and forth. Ryan Johansson's clearly like the number two center at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you look at his $8 million deal and you say that's a bad contract. But if you're going to do that and you look at Matt Duchene and you ask, is he producing like a number one center? He was last year, not necessarily this year.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you look at his average, that's an interesting conversation to have. I will say this about Ryan Johansson because he was number 2 on the list.
Yes.
A lot of people forget that at the time, for I would say like the first 4 or 5 years of his tenure here, Ryan Johansson was the best center the Nashville Predators ever had. He was the best number one center. And he was a major reason for the Predators' 2017 Cup run.
Absolutely.
And I still maintain this. Somebody said this on Twitter the other day, and I agree. If Ryan Johansson wasn't hurt in the Western Conference Finals,
come on,
I think the Predators beat the Penguins. I really do. Because what's he known for? Shutting down the other team's best players.
Yeah,
he would have been out there with either Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin. He would have given them some the defensive depth. Colton Sissons did a great job, but he would have given them more defensive depth. I think they shut down, and I think the way he was scoring that year, his best scoring run, there is more than enough offense to help the Nashville Predators beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. And it's one of those, what would have happened? Same for Kevin Fiala, too.
Kevin Fiala, I was just thinking that. Yep.
That was the year that Kevin Fiala really found his groove, started getting really hot towards the end, and then unfortunately got hurt in the second round. So it's interesting. Without those two injuries, you kind of wonder if there's a Stanley Cup banner at Bridgestone right now.
Gosh, I know. So painful. Sometimes hockey is just a wicked mistress.
Yeah.
wicked mistress.
That is a way of describing it, Anne.
Yes, it is. Yeah. But tonight, let's see who is going to earn their contract tonight. Tanner Jeannot, Cole Smith. Let's go.
Yeah. Will it be another tempted mistress? What did you just say?
Wicked mistress.
Wicked mistress or a salty siren? What happens for the Nashville Predators tonight? We'll have to see. It is a 7:00 puck drop here in St. Louis, here in Central Time. So we will be back tomorrow with a full recap of what happened. Also, let us know what you think about what's the worst contract in Nashville Predators history. Do you agree? Do you think just based on the money involved, Kyle Turris or Ryan Johansson are the top two? Or in context, do you think some of the deals like Victor Stahlberg, and some of those players are worse? Let us know your thoughts. Chime in on Twitter at LO_Predators. Or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. We want to know what you think. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com or follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. However you're listening to us right now, whether you're watching us live on YouTube or you're streaming us on your favorite podcasting platform like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, whatever, be sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you'll always know when we have fresh content out for you, and it helps us out with numbers and ratings and whatnot. And you guys want to help us out, right? That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. As always, we'll be back tomorrow with Preds Blues recap. We'll see you then.